Welcome back to Currently with Curator, where I share my latest style obsessions, all of which you can access through my shopping community, Curator. Here's a Halloween gift for you all. We just made our fall warehouse sale even better. Now when you spend up to $150, you can take 30% off with code WAREHOUSE30. Spend $150 to $300 and take 40% off with code WAREHOUSE40. Or spend over $300 and take 50 off with code WAREHOUSE50. I mean, you can't do better than that. My favorite new additions include jewelry by Marin Costello, skincare from Wonder Beauty, and sunglasses by St. Owen. This isn't a trick, but you can only treat yourself to these savings through October 31st. Don't wait until it's too late. Head to Curator.com. That's CURATEUR.com and check out the fall warehouse sale now. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Zoe, and you're listening to Climbing in Heels. This show is all about celebrating extraordinary superwomen who will be sharing their incredible journeys to the top, all while staying incredibly glamorous. Today with me, we have the deliciously talented, super sweetest, Candace Nelson. Candace is a judge on the hit television series Cupcake Wars and Sugar Rush, but she's most known for creating Sprinkles Cupcakes, the world's first all-cupcake bakery. And now, most recently, taking the country by storm with the best pizza in LA and soon to be everywhere else, Pizzana. You must try it if you haven't. Candace and I go way back, and I cannot wait to go over her insane history. So let's get started. So I want to start first by saying, and I say none of this because you're one of my favorite people. I say that you are this like ray of sunshine and light in anyone's lives that knows you. And like right back at you, I think nobody actually knows that this genius that created the world of Sprinkles and then Pizzana and now has a second book is like this powerhouse brainiac, former banker, went to like 15 schools, like, all the things. And I think that like, it's funny because you don't carry yourself in that way. And I bet you do in a room, right? Like I bet in that room at that table, you are like loud and proud and definite and powerful and opinionated and all those things. But in like your real life, you're like this kind, funny, humble mom that like is at every freaking sports game because your kids are super sporty. I kind of wish mine were that sporty. They pretend to be, but they're not. And and I've learned a lot from you. And I think, I would share with our listeners that Candace and I met through a mutual friend, Jenny Kane, many, many moons ago when my first and Candace's second were young. And we ended up at the same school. And Candace helped me as a school mom, which was terrifying to be the new person. And we became forever friends. And it's like Candace walks into a room and I'm happy. It's like an immediate love and hug all around. But I think the fact that you are this powerful ideas person and this entrepreneur, I want to talk about that because I remember you and I having a conversation about your school experience in life long ago. And I just remember like having my jaw to the floor. So I want to hear sort of like from the beginning a little bit, just sort of touch on like, first of all, where did you grow up? Because I think that's very important that people don't know about you.
I just want to respond to something you said, which thank you for all those lovely words. And I mean, this is just going to be a mutual love fest because I just feel exactly the same way about you. You are such a golden light and you are such a true blue friend and so loyal and such a girl's girl. And I respect and admire you so much. But in, talking about how I sort of make my way through the world, I do think that being an entrepreneur at the end of the day is very humbling, right? And it does, right? Right? Yeah, we're glamorized, but we get the hard knocks like daily. So it really is not too hard for me to have humility.
Right. Fair.
Because I just, every day I wake up and I'm like, what problems am I solving today?
100%.
Who's going to knock me back? Who's going to knock me down? I'm just going to keep my head down and keep on going.
Yes.
So I grew up overseas a lot of my life, which a lot of people don't know. Was born in Jakarta, Indonesia, spent time growing up, right? Duh.
Literally like the coolest thing ever, I just want to say. Was it the coolest thing ever?
It was. So here's the thing. Yes and no.
Right.
Because I was having this incredible experience as an expat and learning about these diverse cultures around the world that I would never have had exposure to. No, because I was just a little girl that kind of missed home too.
Sure.
And so, but it ended up being, of course, so foundational to where I am today, because the way that I was able to stay connected to my homeland was through baking.
Yeah.
I couldn't go to the corner store in Medan, Sumatra and get a chocolate chip cookie or a Rice Krispie treat. So I spent hours in the kitchen baking with my mom.
Oh my God.
And I baked all of those things, and they were my connection to home. They were, this is pre-internet. This was when long distance phone calls were expensive and they dropped. So it was hard for me. I was homesick, and that was my connection. So baking has always been for me more than just about the treats, right?
Of course. It was like therapy almost. It was like cathartic for you to do that. It was comfort.
Yes. And I know we share this too. For those of you who don't know, Rachel is an exceptional baker and bakes for her
when you
family.
say exceptional, I think that's for real life, not compared to Candace. Like I'm not doing books and stores. I do it because I love it, but I can't touch a sprinkle. I mean, or anything that she makes. I just want to know that.
Your banana bread is pretty bananas. But so ultimately, I ended up going to a very rigorous boarding school in New England while my parents were still living overseas. I went to a very academic college, and then I ended up at a very prestigious job in investment banking, working with tech companies. It was, the late 90s. I was working with tech companies, and then ultimately went and jumped ship to go to a .com, because that was sort of the .com boom.
Yeah. Yep.
And, it was like this gold rush that was happening in San Francisco.
Yeah.
But then two things happened. One was the .com bust, which meant I was out on my butt without a job.
Of course.
And the second thing was 9/11, which we all remember, right?
Yep. Yesterday.
And which was so clarifying and crystallizing for me,
100%.
because it was the first time that I had asked myself, like, what I really wanted to do with my life.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that from that time period, or even from the more recent pandemic
I
time
quit
period.
my job after that. I turned down every shoot for about 4 months because I just was like depressed and I thought it was vacuous. I was like, I need to start over.
Right.
So
because when you think about that this could all end tomorrow.
Yes.
It brings things into focus real fast.
Yep.
And I realized that I had been kind of buying into this myth that if I followed a certain path, I would find success and happiness. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't what had happened.
Most people do that, by the way. So I want to pause there for a second, because I think a lot of young people, and I think especially women, I mean, I can't speak for men, but I would say as a woman, I think we tend to lean into that. This is our plan, right? Mm-hmm. We want to, if I do this by X, I do this by X, and I do this by X, then it's going to be that, right?
Totally.
And that's 99% of the time not how it actually works, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you're right. Okay, so continue.
So the next logical step for me would have been to go to business school. It's what all my peers were doing. It's sort of the next sort of step in the trajectory after a financial analyst program. And I was like, I'm going to pastry school.
Bless your soul.
This was not what anyone had in the cards for me, including myself. But I wanted to do something that brought me joy. I wanted to create something that I could put into the world that would create some joy, because it was such a dark period of time.
Yeah.
But I was realistic in the sense that, I thought I've always loved to bake as a hobby. Maybe it won't be my career.
It'll be my side hustle.
Right. Let's at least go to pastry school and find out. Like, let's test this. And what I found was that I loved it so much. Like, it was just it was medicine for me after having, been working at a desk crunching numbers. I loved working with my hands. I loved creating beautiful things that people could enjoy. It was so tangible. And
you were living in New York at this point?
This was now in San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a sweet little pastry school just down the street from me. I mean, it was like, I went from this, 40th floor of this office building with views of the bay to like this sweet little kitchen with an organic garden in the back and sunlight streaming in. And
Isn't
I
that
just was like, this
interesting?
is medicine for my
Oh
soul.
my God.
It was amazing.
And so were you with Charles at that point?
Yes, we had just gotten married.
Okay.
So I bring
met
all
where?
these pastries home.
You met where?
We met in San Francisco. We actually worked together. We were at the investment bank.
Okay.
We weren't dating at the time, but that's when I first noticed like what a kind and lovely person he was, because he really stood out amongst a sea of investment bankers who aren't necessarily known for their people skills, their kindness. And I'll just leave it at that.
And you were probably, Candace, correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine you were probably very much in the minority as an investment banker there, as a woman.
As a woman, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it was very much thinking back at that time, it was like you wanted to do whatever you could to fit in.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
So I was like, you'd wear the pantsuit.
I was going to say pantsuits.
Talk like a man, dress like a man, like whatever you could do to fit in. I mean, I knew nothing about sports, but I tried,
Isn't that amazing? That's like really, it's interesting because, Roger was an investment banker for many years in New York. And what he always says about it, and I hear this time and time again, he has no regrets about it because he uses it every day of his life. So it's the best training he ever had, but he genuinely hated it. And it's one of those things where there's a handful of people that love it and do it forever. There's a handful of people or a lot of people that don't love it, but know it's what they should do forever, right? And then there's the people that take it for what it is and say, this is not who I am. I need to do more. I'm walking away now. And so it's interesting to me that you were definitely one of those people, because in those days, I hate to say in those days, but it wasn't a year ago. It was courageous to do that because females did not, and we're getting better now. And thanks to people like you and Amy Griffin and so many others that I know and love, women are having the opportunity now to start businesses, get funded by all different ways of getting funded. And I think my guess is that coming from that's why you're so supportive of female founders and everything else.
Well, thank you. I do think that support, that network, that mentorship is so important.
Yeah,
and I think it was harder to come by back in, when I was first starting in my career. And frankly, because there was only one seat at the table for a woman. So it wasn't like a more is more mentality. It was a little bit more competitive than it is, much more collaborative now. And I love how women are just uplifting other women. And we are so much stronger together. And it's like, I am all in on that.
Right?
Yes.
I know you came into that G9 like guns a-blazing. Like you had such a smile on your face. Like this is like vacation of happiness in that room. And by the way, it was Candace and I have an amazing friend, Amy Griffin, who has an amazing fund, but also she is a champion of women. You guys actually really remind me a lot of each other. Your energy. You're like, I feel like you'd be the best camp counselor, Candace, by the way. I feel like
so funny. Well, our mutual friend Marcy.
Yes.
So Marcy is a publicist. She was PR for Sprinkles back in the day.
Oh, wow.
And she always laughs at me because although she's originally from LA, she's now such a New Yorker.
Yeah.
And I have kind of like the anti-New York personality where I'm very excited all the time. And she said that I should have pom-poms in my hands at all times.
You should. But I do think, it's funny. I just had my stand-up with my company this morning and I was like, God, you guys, I was saying to like the young people that work for us, if there's one thing that you learn working here, please learn the positivity from your peers, from the leaders in this company. It goes so much further than when you bring that smile to any situation, when you bring that positivity and the sort of like, it's all good, no matter what's happening, it's like that calm and that positivity in any business just goes so far. No one doesn't want to be around it.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's so critical when you're in business, particularly as an entrepreneur,
Yes.
there's so little you can control sometimes.
Yeah.
Like the problems keep popping up. It's like a whack-a-mole. The only thing that you can control is your attitude towards it, right?
It's true. It's
so
true.
you can make a situation worse or better.
Yep.
And ultimately, to have longevity in business, you really have to work on that mindset and that perspective. And I agree, Rachel, so much. It's really about, being problem solvers and being problem solvers with like a positive attitude.
Yes.
Mental
100%.
strength is so important.
And to mentor. And I think, I want to talk about that with you. So you obviously you grew up all over, you completely did a left turn out of finance and everything else. I mean, I obviously, and we know how this ends, like it was clearly the best decision. But I think when you think of, and some people have them and some don't, but who really was that person for you that had that impact where you were like, okay, they see me, they get me, and maybe you didn't have that person. And I'm curious, sort of who is that person that was like, your magic, Candace, you have that magic, and I'm going to tell you how you're going to get there and find it.
So a couple of people, I would say. One, from afar, I talked about how, going into investment banking, kind of proving myself in a man's world. I also went to a very, very progressive college. I mean, we spelled women back in the day with a WOMYN so that we would take the men out of the women. I'm not kidding. Like, that's how progressive. And this was back. I graduated in 96.
Wow. So that's amazing.
So for me to be going into the field of domestic arts as my career, for me to be embracing baking felt very regressive to me. It was like anti-feminist in a way, right? So the person who kind of got me over that hump was Martha Stewart. Not that she was not that she was talking to me on the daily, but she was through her TV show.
But she was. She somehow, Martha, the same way Oprah and in different ways, spoke to us somehow. I get it.
Yeah. And she was able to take, she went all in on domestic arts.
Sure
she was like knitting and stuff, right?
Candace, she could build a house with 4 toothpicks.
100%.
She could. I actually would watch her do it. She can do it.
And yet she leaned into this domestic side, and yet she was the strongest, most incredible businesswoman.
Yep.
And she was the one who really gave me permission to say, you know what, I'm not giving anything up by embracing this feminine side. Right?
Sure.
And then beyond that, just on a personal level, I think when I came up with the idea to start the first ever Cupcakes Only bakery and to really elevate cupcakes and kind of reinvent them, it was my husband, Charles, who is still my partner to this day in all of our businesses.
The sweetest. I love him. He's such a good man. He's
another Virgo.
He's special. He's a good one.
Oh, thank you. Well, I feel the same way about your partnership too. So he was the one who literally was kind of the wind beneath my wings, not to be totally cheesy, but, I didn't necessarily have the confidence at the time. I did not grow up in a house where my parents were entrepreneurs. My dad was a corporate lawyer, for God's sake. We were like the most risk-averse family ever. So for him to say, if you nail these recipes, let's do this together, was everything to me.
See, okay, so this is so interesting. I could talk to you for 15 hours, but here's the thing. I think part of the reason that you and I fell in love, I think one of the things that we bonded over, besides that we also have 2 boys, and we're boy moms. That said, Candace only ever wanted boys and got 2 boys. I think it was assumed I would have girls, and I didn't. Now, of course, I live and die and can't imagine anything else. But our husbands are our partners. I think you and I once had the conversation about how we still profoundly enjoy being with our husbands. And we do have many friends that have separate lives than their husbands. And I think whatever works for anyone's relationship is up to them. But I think you and I really still love to go on dates with our husbands and take them to all these things, because I think the thing is, and I feel this way, and I say this very loud and proud, I love women. I support women. I believe in all things women, but I also think there's amazing men. And I do think when you're lucky enough to have one by your side for as long as we have, that ultimately end up being your partners and biggest cheerleaders and supporters, it goes farther than anybody can really understand until they're in that situation. Because to your earlier point about being an entrepreneur, the highs are high and the lows are low. And those lows and highs are almost daily, by the way, right? And it's waves, right?
What are we waking up to today?
Exactly. And it's true. And so I think that having that person by your side to live with that, through that, with you on the daily, and to also parent together, there isn't a day that goes by where people don't ask me, how does that work? How do you not fight all that? Like, how does that? And when I always say, and I'm curious to know how you feel, for me, when you have a partner in business and in life, there is a trust there, right? That is unbreakable. When your husband is your partner, or your wife or whomever is your partner, to me, the age-old story of the disaster between partners in business that go wrong, who would I rather have by my side and trust more than I would my husband? Do we bicker? Yes, like crazy. Do we you know what I mean? Do we pick our areas that he is and I? Yes. I mean, it's a clear divide, of course, but I mean, I think my question to you is, for me, I never question it because there's no one I would trust more to have my back and root for me, which I think is the most important thing in a partnership, is that you're rooting for each other, and that's in work and in life. So my question for you is, how do you feel about it? You obviously love it because he's your partner, but I mean, what are the strengths and challenges there? Because people ask me that all the time. And more I have friends that their husbands are becoming their partners, and they're scared. They're nervous about it. They're nervous about it. Now, a word from our sponsor, Genesis. Okay, guys, me again. And I have got to tell you about Genesis and how their all new G90 is my favorite new luxury sedan. It's the flagship vehicle of the Genesis line that's perfectly designed for people who defy definition. And of course, that's every guest I've had on this show at this point, and you too. The G90's signature 2-line LED headlamps set it apart, giving it a look unlike anything else. I'm telling you guys, it is so beautiful that my family can't stop talking about this car. And we sort of feel like, I don't know, we kind of feel like we're in the most luxurious airplane flying across the world right now. That's how good this car is. And then, of course, there's what's inside. A mood curator with 4 different settings, which engages all of your senses, automatically sets the music, ambient lighting, and fragrance in the cabin. It's like a little spa getaway every time you take a drive. Plus, with the touch of a button, the available easy closed doors make getting into the car so easy, which any parent can tell you that getting young children in and out of a car is one of the day's biggest challenges. I love that it has standard front row power massage seats. It's actually my favorite part because who doesn't want or need a massage all throughout the day? It actually makes me not want to get out of my car. Also available in the rear power seats is the massage function. So when you need a quick massage on the go, sometimes I'll make Roger drive, I'll jump in the back, put my footrest out. The Genesis G90 is for those who are making their mark on the world and want to enjoy the most luxurious amenities while they do it. Check out genesis.com for more information on the all-new Genesis G90. You will be obsessed.
I think you brought up a good point. You bicker together.
Yeah.
That's not a sign that things aren't working.
Right.
There's a way to bicker within a relationship.
Yes.
It's really about, to me, at the end of the day, can you handle conflict resolution? Because there's bound to be conflict.
Yes.
But do you solve that conflict in the right way? Right. So as long as you can sort of own that piece of it, yes. I mean, the benefits are incredible. They're boundless. I mean, just the fact that, we were brainstorming after coming home from a party when I was pregnant at midnight and came up with the idea of the Cupcake ATM. That's a brainstorm that wouldn't have happened if
best thing ever,
we
by
weren't
the way.
both in the room. Right. And you're right, the highs and the lows. So like, who would you rather have, picking you up after like a really devastating,
drama
issue or drama, and who would you rather have like celebrating the wins?
Yep.
It's so
with your children.
And that's the other thing I would say is just that your values are aligned with respect to your business, but it's not just your business. Your values are aligned with respect to your family too. So if your child is sick and somebody's got to miss the important meeting or the opening day, like, that you have each other's back. Somebody's going to step in because you both are aligned overall for life.
100%.
It's a beautiful thing.
But
is. 100% not for everyone. And you can certainly find a co-founder out there who is not your husband. But I do believe in the value of co-founders. I do think just having that person that like you can call in the middle of the night when the website goes down.
Yes.
And I talk about this in my book. In my book, I talk about the value of a co-founder. And I even talk about, different ways to find those people if they're not necessarily right in your network.
Okay. So first, sprinkles. So that was your baby along with your babies, right?
Yes.
Because you had the boys in between, before, after, during, right?
Yeah. So we opened Sprinkles, just to, skip over this quickly, but we opened Sprinkles. Everyone said it wouldn't work. It had never been done before. We were opening in LA where no one eats cupcakes.
Don't you love when people say that? Mm-hmm.
That will never work. Well, I do, because it makes for a good story later, right?
Of course. Like the challenge.
All about the story.
Of course.
Yeah, the obstacle is the way.
Yeah.
So, but it was definitely that sort of entrepreneurial story of like us against the world. We believed in our vision and no one else did. And not to mention, it was the height of the South Beach diet. Like everybody was on a low carb diet. Cupcakes were definitely not cool. So we opened up and it was sort of, lightning in a bottle. From day one, we had people lined up from, Daily Candy, which was that email newsletter that was so hot back in the day. And then shortly thereafter, Katie Holmes talked about us. And then 8 months in, Oprah Winfrey asked to have our cupcakes on her show. And so,
the dream.
But then it was such a dream.
That's the dream.
The dream.
Oprah
and by
saying,
the way,
Oprah breathing the word of your business is the dream. For me anyway,
magic.
For sure.
Magic. And so it wasn't, I think, until 2 years in that I had my first child. But you're right. Sprinkles was definitely my first child.
Yep.
And just like, you raise children and you watch them grow and they fly away. We did end up selling a significant stake in Sprinkles, like almost 8 years in.
Which, for most entrepreneurs, that's the dream, right? Is exiting on some level, right? Whether it's fully, whether it's partially. Mm-hmm. That just is a testament to the success of the brand, and it continues to live on in the biggest way, which is also the dream, right?
Yes, the dream and the hope is that you are passing the reins to somebody who understands the brand, who has the network and connections to make it fly, and who can take it out of the realm of sort of founder mode, which is, I'm much more of like an idea person, go to market, branding, all of that. Yeah. All of a sudden we were, we had a national business, brick and mortar retail business. There wasn't a time in the day where there wasn't someone in a Sprinkles baking a cupcake.
It's the sickest thing.
So that meant that calls could come in at 3 a.m, that the oven was broken. And we had little boys that were growing up, and it was hard because when Charles and I opened a store, we would go relocate.
Of course.
We lived in Dallas for 3 months.
Of course you did.
Hiring and training. So it just got to be an operational play. Yeah. And we ultimately found someone who was great at that. And so, yes, you're right. I think, to a certain extent, to a great extent, it's the dream of, founding, scaling, and selling a company. Yeah. Yep. But there's also loss that comes with it. I'm not going to lie. Just like,
control.
Anything. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Control
and
identity.
All the
things. Yeah.
Identity to a certain extent, right? Yep. That was, people called me Mrs. Sprinkles.
You're just so much more than that, Candace. You're just so much more than that.
Thank you. I hope so.
My kids, I told the boys that I was talking to this morning. And first, after Sky was like, I need to see Harry, Caius goes, when can we have Pizzana? So
I love those boys.
Okay.
They are the cutest. And by the way, excellent palates.
Excellent palates. They do well, especially Sky, man. If I told you what that kid ordered for dinner last night, he eats things that I still don't eat and have never tried. He is fearless.
Wow. Wow. Okay. We're going out to dinner then. That sounds like my kind of dining companion.
So, he watched your TV show religiously. Anything with Candace Schuyler is like this. And so, I want to quickly touch on Pizzana, and I want to talk about Sweet Success.
Yeah.
First of all, okay, so Pizzana. So, and again, in a world filled, well, I shouldn't say a world, I should say a state filled with non-carb eating, diet obsessed, fitness obsessed, like culture, Candace and Charles decide to launch Pizzana, right? And I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, pizza. I'm like, what? Like vegan, gluten-free? She says, no. She's like, I mean, we'll have options. But you being the like culinary, like, person that you are, I think was like, no. I'm actually going to launch the best and different, right? So tell me a little bit about Pizzana and why after like getting off of sprinkles a bit, you were like, okay, round 2. Because not everyone does that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I love starting companies.
Yeah, obviously.
It's really fun until then they grow up a little bit and then you're like, wait a second.
Right. Sure.
Why can't they be an infant again?
Sure. It's like,
why can't we just be in the dreaming? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll just be in the dreaming stage forever.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That really, honestly, that was something that came into my life that I wasn't expecting.
Right.
And it was, based on the fact that I met this really passionate chef, Daniele Uditi. He had just immigrated to the United States from Naples, Italy.
Yeah.
I had one bite of his pizza. I heard his story about coming to the United States with $200 in his pocket and smuggling in his grandmother's sourdough starter. And I was
amazing.
And he said he wanted to start his own restaurant. And I said, we need to do that together. Like I could just see it. I had a vision for it. And so sure enough, we opened in Brentwood a couple years later. And essentially what Pizzana is, well, I'm kind of doing what we did for Cupcakes back in the day, which was transforming something that people already thought they knew into something that's new and surprising.
Sure.
And so, Pizzana is really the best of Italy meets the best of Southern California. Yeah. We call it Neo-Neapolitan pizza because true Neapolitan pizza is sort of soupy in the middle. You have to eat it with that fork and knife.
Totally.
Americans like to pick up they like handheld food in general, right?
Yeah, they do.
But we definitely like to pick up our pizza. And so it's sort of this blend of cultures. It's,
and it is the best. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't say that because I know and love you. Like, I would be polite about it. You know what I mean? If we,
right.
But it really, without anybody knowing that I know you, without anybody, when you have Pizzana, it's like that overwhelming reaction of like, no matter who I send there or whatever, they'll be like, okay, I have to not eat today because I'm going to Pizzana tonight. And what's that one with all the like meat and the thing and everybody
carnivoro.
Yeah, everybody talks about this for like days.
Oh my God.
So it's like, it really is unique and it really is special. And it really did bring something in a world filled with pizza, right? Like that's sort of the thing. I remember you telling me about it and I was like, wait, but isn't there? I mean, listen, LA
there's no shortage of pizza.
There's no shortage of pizza, but I would argue to say LA is not. I would say that Pizzana really stands out here, and it is just the best ever. And so I think my question for you is: are you going all the way with Pizzana? Like, am I gonna is the dream someday? Like, I'm going to go to Whole Foods or wherever and be able to find it in a freezer, and that I can make my own Pizzana kind of thing.
I sure hope so. We're definitely growing fast right now. We went into the pandemic with 2 locations and luckily survived. We really had our takeout situation dialed in and our customers were so supportive of us. I honestly gives me chills. Yeah. I mean, it was like a personal relationship with our customers. Like people were checking in on us. It was unbelievable. So out of the pandemic, we opened 1 more and now we have 2 more in the works in Southern California.
Amazing.
But excitingly, we also have a Dallas opening planned.
Amazing.
In early November, late October.
Amazing.
We're also expanding beyond Dallas within Texas. And now we're shipping nationally too through Goldbelly.
Amazing.
So, yes. So
amazing.
And our gluten-free and our vegan options are available via Goldbelly. And then also, this is kind of fun, but Daniele has a show coming out on Hulu called Best in Dough, where he's going to be this pizza judge. And it's just like a fun, co-viewing, family viewing sort of situation. And it's streaming on Hulu starting September 19th. So it'll probably already be out by the time this comes out.
Incredible. Of course he is, by the way.
Yeah. So, and he's just such a great personality. And it's so fun to watch him shine because it's really an American dream story.
I love that. And I also think and I do think to the point of Pizzana spreading out everywhere and being more accessible to everybody, I think that's the dream in this life we live in now. Let's give everyone access to the best, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, we've seen you do that with sprinkles and now with Pizzana, and I'm sure you're plotting something next. But I do want to hear about Sweet Success, because I imagine that Sweet Success has to do with the highs and the lows and the ups and the downs and the challenges and the I want to crawl into a hole and quit today and I'm done. Mm-hmm. And wait, just kidding, I'm not. I'm starting a new business. So tell me about your book and tell me why another book and how excited everybody should get about it.
Thank you, Rachel, for that lovely intro to the book.
Of course.
I first off want to say it is not a cookbook. So if you are expecting more cookies and cupcakes, I am sorry to disappoint you. Although there may be a pre-order bonus. So, you're going
to have to do another one of those, Candace. You're going to have to do another one of those. You have to do another cookbook. You're going to baking book, cookbook, something, Pizzana book. I don't know. You're going to have to do it.
Never say never. I definitely need to get back in the kitchen and do that. Sweet Success, on the other hand, is really a guide to entrepreneurship. Yeah. And it is told through the lens of my building, scaling, and ultimately selling sprinkles. So it's told through the lens of me as a first-time founder where I literally knew nothing. And so I, during the pandemic, had a time to sit down and do something that many of us type A, busy people don't get a chance to do, which is reflect on where I've been and how I got there.
Yep.
And I also, and I know you're in the same boat, but mentor some, early founders. Yep. And I have a lot of requests for more mentorship. And ultimately, at the end of the day, there's only so many hours.
Of course.
And so I wanted to, provide my advice and support on a larger platform. And so that's what Sweet Success is. And it's really based on my mission that I believe entrepreneurship is for all. Even though we see Elon Musk in the papers all the time or Jeff Bezos, it's sure. You don't need to be building a rocket ship to the moon to be making a change in the world. Yep. And I do think for me, it's also a love letter to women and a rallying cry for them to come online with their confidence.
Do it.
Go after their dreams. It shouldn't take 9/11 or some tragedy to happen for us to be really asking ourselves, what do we want to do?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. So...
And I hear that a lot, Candace. I do. I hear a lot of women that are highly educated or went through all this school and then they had children and then all of a sudden their children were in school full time and they woke up and said, now what? What do I do? Am I too old to start something? Am I, is it too late to start from the beginning and all of those things? So I think you're 100% right.
You're right. We have friends who are empty nesters now who are brilliant and have time on their hands and they have an idea on the back burner. So this book is for them, but it's also for your niece who's in college and is taking entrepreneurship courses.
Who also follows your original book like it's a Bible.
Yes. And then there's a lot of bakery owners who are really excited about this book because they already have, it's really about anyone who has a passion that wants to turn it into a full-time gig.
It's so needed. It's so needed. And I also think, you're such a relatable person, Candace, you are, even though you've lived this very, I'm not going to say glamorous. I'm going to say very cultured, very enriched, very educated life. You come from very intelligent parents, doers and workers. And I think, listen, I think when you come from a family of doers and workers, I find that children go either way, right? I think they have it or they are allergic to it, right? So
get them that summer job.
Right. Get them that summer job. I do want to ask you one final question before we end, because I could talk to you for 4 days straight. But
feel the same way.
How do you find the working as a mom? Because for me, that's actually the biggest challenge of all of it, because you want to be there for everything. And I do find, tell me if you agree or not, But I do find that having my husband as my partner makes that hurdle easier because you can cover for each other. You dictate your schedule. You dictate your travel. You can roll as a family, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But when you have to miss that thing that you know your boys want you at, like, tell me about that. And also building your first business while having babies. So hard.
It's so hard. I'm not going to sit here and say I've found the perfect answer.
There isn't one.
There isn't one. I think what I like to think about is just that, you know, you're a mother for a long time or a short period of time, depending on how you look at it. But I like to think of it as a long, expansive period of time. And there are going to be different seasons of that motherhood and of your life that are going to be more focused on work, that you might feel like you're not as present as you want to be. But the beauty of entrepreneurship to me is that it always allows you that flexibility to come back around and like go all in on your family in a way that maybe having a 9-to-5 wouldn't allow you to.
It's true. Like summer, right?
Summer. And even like, you know, the Halloween parade at noon on a Wednesday. Like, I don't know how someone who has to be in an office can go do that.
No, it's very
But
hard.
I'm able to work, or, you know, move things around.
Of course.
At the end of the day, we probably work more hours because it never shuts off.
Never. Having ideas at 2 a.m., 100%.
Creative brain never shuts off.
Never.
But I also, as my kids have gotten older now, Charlie's 15, by the way, 6'3", Rachel.
Obviously. I love that you're surprised. I love that you're surprised.
I am surprised. I mean,
why are you surprised? You're like 5'10"?
No, I know, but I figured he'd be tall eventually, but not yet. I guess he's 15, but I still think of him as so little.
It's crazy. When my kids tower over me, I'm literally going to like, I still hug them like they're 2. I still kiss them like they're 2. It's not normal.
That will never change, Rachel. I know that about you. It will never change. And I feel like you'll have snugglers forever.
Ever. I hope so,
you're the most loving mommy. And so I feel like as they've gotten older, I have an opportunity to sort of incorporate them into my work.
Yeah.
Like I love the idea of raising entrepreneurs and because essentially they're just problem solvers, right? That's all we are.
It's true.
And so Charles and I will bring up things at the dinner table about work, ask them their advice. What should we do? And allow them to have some ownership over it and weigh in and feel like it is a family business. And they take a lot of pride in that. And I think that also it is about just at the end of the day, what you're modeling, right? And
it's true.
At the end of the day, your boys are so proud of you. They're proud of me. They have like moms that are like doing things in the world. Yeah. And like, there's a lot of things you can say as a parent, but parenting, just like anything in life, comes down to action.
It does.
And what you're modeling.
It does. And it's so true because it does rub off on them. And literally yesterday, Skylar said to me, Mom, I'm going to invest money in Wiley and David's lemonade stand. I'm thinking you can bake some cookies and it would raise the value. He goes, they're giving me 33% of the business.
Wow.
And you know what I
quite
said?
The negotiator.
You know what I said to him? Go run numbers with Dad. I'm not sure that your investment makes sense. Mom's ideas, Dad is the money part. Go run your numbers. So Roger came in, he goes, I think he's investing too much for what
Right. We got some work to do. But the idea and the initiative is there.
Yes,
and
they love it.
Is the important thing. We can fine tune the rest.
And I think like when you think about your kids, you think about like, what's the dream, right? What's the dream for them? And I think you see who's going to do what likely, you know? And I think Sky 1000% will be a CEO entrepreneur, 100%. And I think Caius will probably invent like vaccines or go to the moon or God only knows. But my last question for you, what is the dream? You're already living it in so many ways, for better, for worse, ups and downs. But what is the dream if I said like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Like where do you see it? Where are you?
That's a great question. I mean, certainly we've expanded Pizzana beyond California, beyond Texas. We are, delivering on our mission of like bringing transportive pizza to the masses.
The best.
But I think I also am really feeling so fulfilled by, supporting other female founders in their journey in terms of angel investing, in terms of amplifying with my network,
it's the best.
And support and mentorship. And I've realized that I can't, even though I love to start companies, like I can't start all the companies all the time.
No.
They take a lot of energy.
Yep.
So I'm going to be all in on Pizzana, but I can be on the sidelines of a lot of other businesses as an angel investor. So that's been really, really fun for me as well. And, Sweet Success is part of that mission as well. It's just the idea that entrepreneurship is for everyone if you have a passion and a plan. And so I hope it will help a lot of people.
You're the best. I love you madly and beyond.
You're the best. This was just like a I don't know, like a play date for me.
By the way, that's the whole point of Climbing in Heels, is literally just talking to amazing women and friends and just people I love and admire, because it just should be like coffee talk.
Yeah. And I have to say one last thing, which is there's a chapter in my book that I wrote where, like, literally had you in mind.
Aww.
And it's about the female founder network we have here in LA and how it's so strong and supportive, and how we have this sort of unspoken language of like, we're smiling, but like kind of looking across the table and kind of checking in with each other in a very real way. Like, how are things really? And I literally, that's like an homage to you, because that's how I feel about you. Like, you are always so positive and yet so real. And I love you so much.
Right back. And I love you too. And I do think that's important to know that, like, people do see you and see when you're going through it too, right? Mm-hmm. In personal or professional life.
Absolutely.
I love you madly. Kiss those boys and kiss Charles for me. Hi, everyone. Okay, it's that time of week where I answer your weekly questions. I pick 2. So here we go. First question. What are some of your favorite go-to Halloween costumes, and do your boys still make you dress up? Okay, so I would say in all the years I've been dressing up, the thing that I go to the most is sort of a Great Gatsby era woman with just like put sequins everywhere, tons of jewelry, bright red lips. I have marabou feather things for days, beaded little dresses, fishnets, heels, the whole thing. I tend to really go very last minute into my archives and try and throw something together. I've also done Brigitte Bardot. I've done Cher. I mean, I've definitely done 80 Sedgwick is one that I love. That's definitely my go-tos. And do my boys make me still dress up? Yes, definitely they do, especially Caius. And I will forever be some version of a princess or queen until he tells me that he doesn't want me to be. But so far this year, he will be a dark prince, a white knight, and I will be some form of a dark queen or a princess. What is a fall fashion trend that you love? I would say one of my favorite fashion trends for fall year after year, and I think now it's bigger than ever, but I love the idea of just a really textured coat. But typically my favorite would be like in a winter white or ivory, and I like it very tonal over some shade of winter white or ivory with like a camel pant or bag. I really love that sort of winter white, oversized chunky sweaters and coats and trousers. I just love that look. I think it's so rich. I think it's such a nice alternate to black before you get into like January and the dark winter months. But that's definitely a fall fashion trend that I love. And I love winter white shades mixed with tans and camel accessories. I love. Okay, so don't forget to submit your questions for next week's episode. All you have to do is DM us your questions to @ClimbingInHeelsPod on Instagram, and I might just answer your question. Can you believe Candace grew up in Indonesia and went to every business school possible? Candace is so much more than just a pastry chef. And, I think I'm endlessly surprised and blown away by the women that I speak to on this podcast, because so many of them I've known for so many years, and yet I'm still learning so much about them. And Candace has always just been so impressive with her business savvy, obviously one of the best bakers in the world, in my opinion. But I think taking Sprinkles Cupcakes to such success, And then, of course, it having ice cream and birthday cakes and all these things. But then launching Pizzana in the middle of a time where, especially in Los Angeles, people barely eat carbs, but yet launched to such tremendous success. And I have to tell you that it stands out as absolutely one of the best pizzas in the United States, in my opinion. Totally unbiased. Of course, you will have to decide it for yourself. But I do love really learning more deeply how Candace was such a brave woman coming up in her career, surrounded by men in finance, in the finance world, and then turned around and said, well, I'm going to do something totally unexpected, and I'm going to go back to the beginning of time, get back into the kitchen and make cupcakes and make a business out of cupcakes. So I think her irony just really led to success, and she's doing it all over again. So thank you so much for listening to Climbing in Heels. And don't forget to write a review wherever you get your podcasts. I love to see it. And while you're at it, follow me on @RachelZoe and @Climbing in Heels on Instagram for more updates on upcoming guests, episodes, and all things Curator.